Good morning, girls. Today's class is regarding genetic engineering and RDNA technology. So what is this genetic engineering? Genetic engineering is nothing but it is called as an artificial manipulation or alteration of genes. That means what you are taking a genetic material and you are manipulating the genes. You are extracting, isolating the gene of your interest and introducing into one more DNA, which is also called as a vector. So what is this? What are the different steps in genetic engineering? First, you need to remove your gene, that is your interested, desired, or target gene from one organism. Then insert that target gene into DNA of another organism by a cut and paste process. So we'll first learn few terms, that is rDNA. What is rDNA? This is called as recombinant DNA, which is also called as altered DNA. As you know, DNA is a polynucleotide, right? So they have a segment of certain segment of DNA is called as a gene. So you isolating a gene from one organism and introducing into an another. So genome which is having some foreign gene is called as recombinant DNA. And what is genetically modified organism? It is an organism with an altered DNA. The organism which is harboring that altered DNA is called as genetically modified organisms. Now what are the steps involved in genetic engineering? The first one is isolation. What isolation? Isolation of your desired gene from an organism. And then after isolating the DNA fragment from that, you have to cut down your interested gene, because the whole DNA cannot act as a gene. So you have to cut your desired gene from that fragment. Then take that desired gene and insert into a vector. You have a process called as ligation there. Then you get in rDNA. That particular cloned DNA, you are transferring that into one more or a cell, that is called as host, which is called as transformation. So when that particular host start replicating and synthesizing, or it shows gene expression. So these are the 5 steps: isolation, cutting, ligation, transformation and expression. So these are the basic steps. In detail, if you study, the first one is selection and isolation of DNA insert, that is you are interested. Then you will take that inserted the foreign DNA and insert that into a cloning vector. Then that cloning vector is introduced into a host and that is being expressed. You have to see whether that particular clone DNA in a transform host cell is expressing or not, and then you have to check for the expressions and multiplication. So the first step, you can just see, this is the basic thing you see in rDNA technology. You see, this is an eukaryotic chromosome where the red one is your desired gene, right? So now what is your aim? First you have to cut down this whole huge complex chromosome so that you get this particular red color desired gene. So you have to cleave this particular DNA with the group of enzymes called as restriction endonucleases, right? So when you get this fragment. See, these are the we don't want this blue color ones. We are interested only in the red color gene. So you got the fragments with the help of the restriction endonucleases, right? Now what is your second step? That you have to insert your desired gene into the vector. So you have to take a cloning vector. So cloning vector should also be cleaved with a group of enzymes called as restriction endonuclease. So you can see here that this is cleaved and you have to insert this red color into this. So the fragments are ligated. As you know, DNA ligase is a very important enzyme in ligation process. So this is the DNA ligase which can have the ability to insert and seal this red color, your desired gene, into this cloning vector. So you can see this is a recombinant vector here. Now what is the next step? Once you insert your desired gene into the vector, the next is that the vector has to be introduced into a host cell. So the DNA has to be introduced into a host cell. So now you can take this host cells, can be many things. Like we will be studying in detail about all this. So now here we can think that this host cell is an E. coli cell. So your vector harboring the foreign gene is introduced into an E. coli cell, and then again it is being subjected to propagation, multiplication. So what happens, as the single cell divides and multiply, it will give you a recombinant DNA, right? So these are the basic steps in rDNA technology. So what is the first step I told you in rDNA technology? That you have to isolate your gene of interest. For that you need culture. So you are taking cells, you have to overgrow the culture, it should be a 12 hours culture or 24-hour culture. Let it grow, it should be fresh culture. Then you have to extract the DNA from the cell. So what you will do, you will take a test tube and add detergent, so that detergent will disrupt the plasma membrane which is present beneath the cell wall. And lysozyme is also being used because it will degrade the cell wall. So detergent and lysozyme are being used to degrade the cell wall and the plasma membrane. So what is there in the cell? You have proteins, RNA and so on. So you will take that and treat this cell suspension with protease and RNase. So protease will act on proteins, RNases will act on RNA. Our interested thing is DNA, right? So they will get denatured. Proteases will act on protein and RNases will act on RNA. And then again what you will do is, now we are interested in the DNA. So what you will do is, you will take a test tube and undergo centrifugation. So whatever cell debris, waste thing like proteins, RNA, what all are there, it will get sedimented and you will get a pellet. Now you will get a supernatant liquid which is having a DNA, and we are interested in that particular DNA, right? So you will transfer this into one more test tube, because the pellet you are removing out and you are interested only in the DNA. So you will transfer that into this, and you will treat that supernatant with the ethanol. So the DNA which is present in the cell suspension will come in the form of a viscous strand which can be spooled by a glass rod. So with the help of the glass rod you can take out that particular DNA. So now the first step is what? You have isolated the DNA, right? In that particular DNA you have your desired gene. So what will be your next step? That you will take that DNA and treat that DNA with restriction enzymes. So this restriction enzymes, usually many enzymes are involved in this genetic engineering, like you have exonucleases, endonucleases, and in endonucleases you have the specific restriction enzymes. And then you have DNA polymerases which play a very important role in rDNA technology, then DNA ligases and so on. So this restriction enzymes, what is the importance of restriction enzymes are? They have been isolated from bacteria, from many of the bacterial cells. They have a very important role, that they help its own DNA from degrading by the other enzymes of the other cells. Okay, so restriction enzymes are of different types. There are 3 types. We will study in detail. So when they are being used on your DNA which you have isolated, you will get 2 types of so you can see here scissors like this. So they are cutting at a restricted specific site. They randomly cannot. So they have some restriction sites. They identify some palindromic sequences and then cut. So each enzyme will have its restriction sites onto which they act. So when they cut, you will get 2 types of pattern. One is sticky ends, where sticky ends you can say that they are asymmetric. You will not get even sides. They are uneven sides. You can see here that you don't find any bases here. Here also you won't find. So these are called as sticky ends. When you just join this, so it will be like this, and when you cut it, you will find asymmetry type of cutting this. So this is called as sticky end and or cohesive end. And you also have one more type of cutting which is called as blunt end, which is a symmetrical one. Okay. So restriction enzymes. Restriction enzymes are of 3 types. Restriction type 1, type 2 and type 3. So in rDNA technology, type 2 is more commonly used. So they cut both the strands. They identify the 2-strand double-stranded DNA, and they identify the palindromic sequences, and they require magnesium ions for their cutting. And most important, and when you compare type 1 and type 3, they are very rarely used, but type 2 restriction enzymes are mostly used. So these are the examples of some restriction enzymes. For example, EcoR1. EcoR1 is very important restriction enzyme which has been isolated from Escherichia coli. So when this EcoR1 has to act on any DNA, it should have a recognition sequence called as GAATCC. When it is acting, it will act after G, so that you will get palindromic sequence. That means what? The other end should also have GATTCC but in an invert position. So at G it will act and you find a sticky end generating. Some of the enzymes will give sticky ends, some of the enzymes will give blunt ends. For example, HindII. HindII is giving you blunt end. That means they are symmetrical. So you have many restriction enzymes that are being used in rDNA technology. Now you can see here, see if GATCC is there, GGATTAC, this is the recognition sequence by BAM-H1. When it is acting at after G. So after G, when it is acting, you can see that you get an asymmetric sequences here. So you don't find any sequences below this, above this, and no sequences are below this. And blunt ends. Blunt end means exactly they are acting after T, so you get some symmetric ends. So here you can see here blunt ends, they are symmetric, and sticky ends, they are asymmetric. So this is an example here. See GAATTC, this is the recognition sequence by EcoR1, GATTCC, this is the, so when this both molecules are acted upon by EcoR1, you get asymmetric sequences, sticky ends or cohesive ends. So DNA ligase have the ability to join. So you can see this is red in color and this is the blue in color. So they are from different cells, and if you have to join, DNA ligase play a very important role in sticking up the two ends. Now as you know, as I told you, restriction enzymes, endonucleases can generate blunt ends as well as cohesive ends. Suppose your DNA isolated, your desired DNA has a blunt ends and your vector is having your cohesive end. So both of them cannot be joined. So in that case, what you are supposed to do is the linkers play a very important role. So what does this linkers are? Linkers are nothing but the double stranded, chemically synthesized double stranded DNA which have sites for restriction endonucleases. So they are being joined. They can be, if you have a blunt end in your foreign gene and if you have a cohesive end in the vector, you cannot join. So what are you doing? You are manipulating your blunt end. You have to see that you are generating a cohesive ends to this blunt ends by adding linkers. So linkers play a very important role. So what you can see here, this green color are linkers. So what they are doing, these linkers are joined onto the either side of your blunt ended DNA, and then EcoR1 is being acted upon. So these linkers have the sites for EcoR1. So you can see that this blunt end are being changed to cohesive ends. Right, this is an important regarding importance of linkers. And now coming to adapters. Adapters are also the same. If you have this blunt ends, you can create the blunt ends into a cohesive ends by adding adapters. So these are the adapters which have the sites for restriction endonucleases. The third important things which you can do is homopolymer tailoring. So in homopolymer tailoring, if you have a blunt end DNA in your desired DNA, with the help of the enzymes terminal deoxynucleotide transferase and GTP, you can add guanine at the end and you can make a blunt end into a cohesive end. So the enzyme which is required is terminal deoxynucleotide transferase and DGTP. So you can see here, this is a vector which is having poly DC, which is having a cohesive end. This is not a blunt end, this is a cohesive end. So what are you doing? You are taking your foreign DNA is also having a blunt end, cohesive end with GGG. So you are annealing this G with C because G is complementary to C and you get a molecule of this type. Now, till now you have seen that you have isolated the DNA of your interest by treating that with detergents and then ethanol. You have taken the DNA and then that particular DNA is being subjected to restriction endonucleases, you got the desired gene, right? So among the huge population or fragments of DNA, you should know which is your gene of interest. So isolation is over. After isolating, identifying your desired gene is very important, and that identification is through agarose gel electrophoresis. So here in this particular agarose gel electrophoresis, what you are supposed to do is you are preparing agarose gel and molding it on to here, and then you are creating a well and keeping this particular gel into an electrophoretic buffer, and you have the power supply, you have a cathode and an anode, right? So DNA is a negatively charged, so obviously from cathode it will go to anode, right? So whatever mixture you have your sample, in this sample you don't know where is your DNA. So isolation is over. Now you need to identify from the huge population of DNA segments which is your own, which is your desired gene. So you are loading the samples, fragments of sample DNA into this wells of the agarose gel, and you are owning the power supply. So obviously when it is negatively, it will move towards the positive charge. So as you can see in the next one, that the larger molecules, because they are having high molecular weight, they will migrate very slowly, and the lower molecular DNA will run very fast here. Now this is, you are separating the DNA segments based upon the molecular weight, right? Now after this, you have to identify which is your gene of interest. So you will have some molecular markers which you will be loading at the end of year. So based upon that, your gene based upon the molecular weight of your gene of interest, you will come to know that this is the where is your DNA fragment. So you can see here, this is a trans illuminator where DNA which have been separated are being seen in an orange color. So from here you have to take out the DNA. So every time, because the DNA which you want is in very less number, like it is very small segment which is there inside this. So what you have to do is you have to go for certain methods called as amplification. So in amplification of the DNA fragment which you have isolated can be done by PCR technique, because you have a very suppose you have a very small amount of DNA, and every time you can't go for DNA isolation and so on. So what you are supposed to do is, whatever DNA you have to go for amplification. Amplification is nothing but you are increasing the number of copies of that particular DNA, and that is being done by PCR technique. Okay, PCR technique. So this is a PCR machine which is very costly, and now in this particular PCR technique you have three important steps which is called as denaturation, annealing and extension. So just imagine this is your DNA of your interest, and you have only one molecule, right? So but you have to do many practicals and many things to do. So you should have many copies of that. So you are going for amplification. So how are you doing this amplification? The first step is denaturation. As you know, denaturation is nothing but separation of the two strand molecules. So you can see this is 5' to 3' and 3' to 5'. So denaturation, how are you doing? You are increasing the temperature of that particular solution to 98 degrees. So the two strands are getting separated. The two strands are getting separated, and then the second, you are subjecting that to the next method, that is called as annealing. Again you are reducing down the temperature from 48 to 72. It was 98 where the two strands got separated. Now what you will do is you will add an enzyme called as tag polymerase. As you know, DNA polymerase play a very important role in polymerizing, adding nucleotides. Here, because you are subjecting this process for higher temperature, you are not using DNA polymerase. You are using an enzyme called as tag polymerase, which is being isolated from a thermophile bacteria called as Thermus aquatis. So you can see that a primer is being kept at 3' to 5' end. and tag polymerase have the ability to add the nucleotides and so on. So the third step is an extension. So extension is because of the tag polymerase. So you can see that two molecules have been changed to four. Okay, so first cycle you are getting 4 copies. Again the same thing happens for this 4 strands, that is denaturation, annealing and extension takes place. So you get 8 copies, then after 8 copies 16 copies, 16 copies 32 copies. So you had one copy and now you have 32 copies. So now you can preserve the other copies for your further studies. So this is very important. PCR technique is for amplification, and 3 important steps are there: denaturation, annealing and extension. Denaturation is done at 98, annealing is done at 72 degrees and extension at 62 to 72 by tag polymerase, and you get multiple copies of your desired gene, right? So now you have one more topic called as blotting techniques. Once you identify whatever gene is there in the agarose gel, you are supposed to go for blotting techniques, because you need to make a replica of what you have. You have an agarose gel, you can't damage that by using one, so you have to go for a blotting technique. Blotting technique is nothing but whatever it is a method by which you are transferring the proteins or DNA or RNA onto a carrier. That means you are maintaining your original copy with you and you are making a replica of that onto others, like how you have a Xerox copy. In the same way, right? So what is blotting? It is nothing but transfer of the biological sample from a gel. You have a gel. Onto the gel you have DNA. So what you are doing, you are transferring that DNA from a gel onto a membrane, and then you are going for the further detection onto the surface of the membrane. But you are not detecting that onto the gel, because once you use the gel it will be wasted and you can't use it for the further process. So you are blotting it. So blotting techniques are many ways. You have southern blotting, northern blotting and western blotting. Southern blotting is done for DNA, northern blotting is done for RNA, western blotting is done for proteins. Now what is this southern blotting? What you did, you have your DNA here, genomic DNA. You have subjected that DNA onto restriction with the restriction endonucleases. You got this many fragments and you don't know which is your desired fragment here. So you are subjecting that to agarose gel electrophoresis, which we have studied just now. So you have your gel here, right? So now what you are doing, you have to blot or make a copy of the same onto a membrane. So what you are doing, you are taking a nitrocellulose or a nylon filter paper and you are pressing it like this. So you can see here that this is a trough onto which you are adding a buffer, and onto the buffer you have a platform, then a wrap, then like you have a tissue paper, something like that, Wadman filter paper. Then you can see your gel is present here. The purple color ones is your gel, and onto the gel you can see that you are placing one more nitrocellulose filter paper, and then you are putting weight onto that with the help of a Wadman paper stack, paper towel stack and weight. So what is happening here? The DNA fragments which are present onto the gel are being transferred onto the membrane filter, right? Got it? So whatever DNA segments are being they got separated during agarose gel electrophoresis, they are transferred onto this particular membrane. Now whatever further studies you are doing, you will take this membrane filter and then go for further. So you got this nitrocellulose filter paper. So the same pattern what you got here on an agarose gel, you are getting it here. Now what is the next step? That among this DNA fragments, now you should know which is your gene of interest, which is your DNA segment in which you are interested. So you will treat this particular nitrocellulose or nylon filter with 32P probe. What is this probe? Probe is nothing but it is a segment of the DNA which is complementary to the DNA of your interest. So you know the sequence of your gene of interest. You are creating a probe It is nothing but it is a nucleotide sequence which is complementary to your DNA of your interest. So obviously when you are treating this with your 32p probe, wherever complementarity is there, it will go and bind onto that, and that detection is done by autoradiography. With the help of the autoradiography, you will get an X-ray film and you will get your wherever this probe went and bind to your gene of interest, you will get something like this. So you can compare this and this and this. So you will come to know, yes, this is my gene of interest. So I will take this and go for PCR technique and amplify it for a so that I get multiple copies. Now, so that was about your isolation is over. Isolation of the cell is over. You have extracted the DNA. You have cleaved the DNA with restriction endonucleases, identified that segments with the help of agarose gel electrophoresis and Southern blotting. Now you have your gene of interest. Your next step is what? You have to take that and introduce that into a vectors. So now what are these vectors? You have to take the vectors, again treat that vectors also with restriction enzymes, and then ligate your gene of interest and the vector so that you get a carrier molecule and so on. So what are these vectors? Vectors are again nothing but these are the DNA molecule which can carry a foreign DNA fragment to be cloned. So the most important vectors are plasmid, bacteriophages, cosmid. You have many vectors. So but important vectors we are studying: plasmids, bacteriophages and cosmid. So what should be an ideal characteristic of a vector? It should be very small. If it is too high, it can't be introduced into a host. Again, the host should also be compatible. Okay, so it should be very small with a single endonuclease activity, but naturally occurring vectors are very less. So these are the different vectors. You can see plasmid is one which can be used as a vector, bacteriophages, cosmids, bacterial artificial chromosome, yeast artificial chromosomes, mammalian artificial chromosome. These are the different vectors which are being used in rDNA technology. So as you know, plasmids are the extra chromosomal autonomous replicating bodies which has its own oocyte for its replication, right? So these are and they also have the ability, they are multi-copy plasmid, because if they are multi-copy, they can produce that particular protein in a higher amount. So the size limit is less than 10 kb. So example of a plasmid in detail you have to study is PBr322. PBr322 is a plasmid which has been maximum used in rDNA technology. So if you can see here, PBr322, it has many restriction sites for many enzymes. So you can see here it is a site for PST1 enzyme, EcoR1 enzyme, BAMH1, SALH1 and PVU2. It has its own oocyte. It need not depend on the host chromosome for the replication, and it also have many markers, like it has an ampicillin resistant site and tetracycline resistant site. The next one is bacteriophage. Bacteriophages like lambdaphages, M13, P1, all this are being used as a vector. So the capacity is how much it can take is 5 to 20. Plasmid is less than 10 kb. Now coming to cosmid. What is this cosmid? Cosmids are the vectors which are artificially created. A part of a lambdaphage, that is cos site, is being taken from a bacteriophage, and a portion of plasmid is being taken. That's why it is called as cosmid. Cos from bacteriophage, mid from plasmid. Okay, so it is being used in the genomic library constructions also. You also have some other like bacterial artificial chromosome where they have taken E. coli F factor plasmid as one of the portion, and the remaining is in eukaryotic one, yeast artificial chromosome and mammalian artificial chromosome. Thank you.